Welcome to another episode of the 250 Bird Challenge. This episode starts in the province of South Holland, more precisely at an area called Lentevreugd, which literally translates to spring joy. And I'm here because yesterday a woodshed strike was seen. And not just any woodshed strike, but one that shows some features of the Balearic subspecies. Let's see if we can find it. This time I didn't rush out at dawn. Instead, I waited for the confirmation the bird was still there. Once the report came in, I set off. On my way from the parking lot to the site where the woodshed strike has been spotted, I passed a small pond. Just a day earlier, Temming stints had been seen here. Now I found a pair of little ringed plovers, easily recognizable by their striking yellow eye rings. These charming migrants visit the Netherlands from March through September, and their breeding numbers have actually been on the rise, a promising sign. Nearby, white wagtails were already busy feeding fledged young, though the youngsters still relied heavily on their parents to do most of the foraging. Sadly, the Temming stints were gone. I only spotted a single redshank, and with strong winds buffeting the area, my footage from this part of the day came out a bit shaky. Lentevreugd itself is a unique nature reserve on the edge of Wassenaar, covering about 100 hectares near the dunes. Once a flower bulb farm, it's been transformed since 2002 into a diverse landscape of wet meadows, pools and reed beds, dotted with shrubs that birds flock to in great numbers. After a long walk, I met a fellow birder who already had the woodshed strike in view. The distance was still quite large, but I decided to film it anyway, just in case. From afar, this striking bird is easy to recognize. Bold black and white markings and of course that unmistakable reddish crown. Its color pattern is surprisingly reminiscent of a great spotted woodpecker, and like most strikes, it often perches atop bushes, scanning the ground for prey. After a few clips, I moved on, hoping to find a better angle from the other side of the reserve. On the way, I encountered a variety of species, most of which disappeared before I could film, except for one, a garden warbler. It's one of Europe's plain brown songbirds, with its only real distinguishing feature being a greyish neck. Still, I was pleased. It was a new species for my film list this year. Further along, a beautiful greenfinch was singing from a bush, a common finch species, though they're often hidden either high in trees or deep in cover. This one, however, performed in full view. Turning a corner, I spotted a small group of people. The strike had just been visible, but was now momentarily out of sight. Fortunately, it didn't take long. The bird returned, this time much closer. Perched atop a shrub, it scanned the ground below, hunting bees and bumblebees, which it caught with quick, precise dives. The woodshed strike ranges across the entire Mediterranean, and even as far east as Iran. The Balearic subspecies, as its name suggests, is found on the Balearic Islands, as well as on Corsica and Sardinia. They are also seen in southeastern France, though these may be migrants rather than breeding birds. One theory is that some individuals follow a migration route via Italy and southeastern France, rather than crossing the Mediterranean directly from Africa. If they miss their exit in northern Italy and continue flying straight ahead, it might explain how one ended up here. This would only be the third record for the Netherlands, though identifying it wasn't quite as straightforward as some birders initially thought. Subspecies can be tricky business. The differences are often subtle, sometimes overlapping, and without a direct comparison, traits like a shorter, thicker bill can be hard to judge. But one standout feature caught my eye, the near absence of a primary patch. This subspecies does have white at the base of the primaries, but it's far more limited than in a nominate form. Exactly how many primaries may show white and in what shape remains a bit unclear. The literature offers no definitive answers. Still, current consensus seems to agree. This individual falls within the expected variation for the Balearic subspecies. That woodshed strike was a great success, got great views of it. But I just got a message that in Groningen a collared flycatcher has been found in a birder's garden, so that's my cue to head back north. In previous rarity updates, I'd often mentioned my plan. If I ever had a reason to head southwest and pass near Almere again, I'd make another attempt for the female bufflehead. The bird had been seen for several consecutive days at the Lepelaasplassen. Just yesterday, it reportedly swam right past the height, mere meters away. Still, I had a bad feeling. It was nearing noon and no new reports had come in. Then again, no birds had been reported at all. Could it be no one had even checked yet? I scanned the lake quickly. A few grey-legged geese paddled across. Then, just in front of them, a male-tufted duck drifted by, pausing to preen. My hope that no one had visited yet was short-lived. Inside the bird hide, a few people were already watching, and they too had come for the bufflehead. No luck. Yet none of us gave up. We clung to the hope she was just tucked away behind a reed bed or out of sight around a bend. As we waited, a great white egret appeared in the shallows, hunting. I kept my camera ready, hoping to catch the moment it struck a fish. After 10 minutes, with no action and a rarer target calling, I decided to move on. The collared flycatcher awaited. As expected, the bufflehead wasn't here anymore. How is it possible to dip this bird so many times? It is seen days on end on the same location, but when we arrive, it's gone. It happened to us 3 times already. 2 times at the Pompous Harbor and now here also. Well, let's hope the collared flycatcher is a bit more cooperative. I've arrived at the site of the collared flycatcher, but I got some bad news. The bird hasn't been seen for 2.5 hours already, so it's not looking that good. The collared flycatcher is a truly rare species for the Netherlands, though it's been recorded almost annually since 2018. Odd really, this long-distance migrant breeds just under 200 kilometers from the Dutch border, yet sightings here remain exceptional. Personally, I'd only seen 2 before, one in 2013, the first twitchable individual in 7 years, and another in 2018 on Ameland, but it had never made it onto my film list. That morning, the bird had been discovered along the edge of a small wooded area, right beside a birders' garden. Ever the legend, he'd even set out a few folding chairs for the twitchers. By the time I arrived, my friend Willem had also shown up. We split up and walked into the woods, hoping to increase our chances. Apart from a single grey tit, it was eerily quiet. After 2 hours of searching, it was time to head home for dinner. But just as I was sitting down to eat, a message popped up. The bird had been relocated. So after dinner, I was back on the road. When I arrived, the flycatcher was once again out of sight. But now the crowd had grown, and with more eyes scanning the trees, our odds of a sighting were much better. After about 50 minutes of waiting, we finally heard the call. The flycatcher was close, somewhere high up in the canopy, but nearly impossible to see. I could tell though that the bird had developed a bit of a routine, and sure enough, after a while, it reappeared at a spot it had visited before. The glimpses were brief, mere seconds, and so far all I had managed to film was a blur. Luckily, I relocated the bird myself later on. This time it perched still for a while, though only half of the bird was visible. For such a skulking bird, I was already grateful to capture that. Sadly, despite my best efforts and directions, not everyone managed to see it. The next morning, I was up early again to lead a private birding tour in Lauwersmeer. During the excursion, I got a message. A great snipe had been found in Ameland. Willem and I made a plan to head there that same afternoon. But first, here's a highlight reel of the morning. A few new species for the year's film list, ending in a stunning broad-billed sandpiper that gave excellent views. After wrapping up the tour, I headed towards Holwert. On the way, a beautiful marsh harrier flew low along the roadside. At 4 p.m, Willem and I boarded the ferry. We'd only have 1 hour to search, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. Once on the island, we quickly rented bikes and pedaled hard for 10 minutes straight, braving headwinds all the way. We arrived at the site, a scenic meadowland, where redshank stood sentinel on fence post and a juvenile black-tailed godwit foraged nearby, a wonderful sight. But our attention was quickly drawn back to the real target, the great snipe. Another birder was already on site for more than half an hour and had bad news. Despite a thorough search, he couldn't find the bird, so our spirits dropped. Then, out of nowhere, a red-breasted goose called as it flew overhead with a group of brants and barnacles, a new addition to the year list. I managed to grab a quick clip before we returned to scanning the grass. It took less than 10 minutes before I spotted a small head poking just above the grass. That had to be it. I called out to Willem and the other birder to check through the scope. The head pattern looked promising. A narrow dark stripe from the eye to the bill, the so-called lore, fit perfectly for great snipe. Still, we couldn't quite rule out common snipe just yet. The bird spent most of its time half hidden and asleep, offering little more than that telltale head. And then, suddenly, it performed a short courtship display. What a moment! With that, the idea was confirmed. It was the great snipe, and I had the footage I'd been hoping for. With about 30 minutes left before our return ferry, we stayed put, hoping for more. The bird kept close to the ditch edge, sometimes disappearing into reeds along the water. It was shy. Every time I called out that I had the bird back in view, it vanished again into the undergrowth. Eventually, we found it again, out in the open, but this time it was flushed by a lapwing. In flight, we got our best looks yet, including its boldly parted underparts. One final brief display dance tipped it off. What an absolute incredible experience.
That was awesome. We took a big risk because we only had an hour to search, but it paid off big time. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel because in the next video, Willem and I are participating in the Top of Holland Birding Day, a competition in which the finder of the rarest bird wins a prize. Hopefully, I'll see you then.